Hey, it's Ryan with S&B. Today we're going to be doing an install on our 2017 and up crew cab long bed fuel tank here for the 6.7 Powerstrokes. It's going to fit all the 17 and newer Super Duties with the 6.7 Powerstroke high output and standard output, and they have to be a crew cab long bed. So we're going to start pulling this tank out and we'll show you how it's done. First step, we're going to go ahead and remove the filler neck and the vent line. Ford always likes to point these towards the bed, so I just use a ratchet with a 8mm or 5/16 socket. So we'll get both these loose. So I'm now on the driveline side of the truck, but to get the electrical, but it's going to be easier to do it from the driver's side, the outside of the frame rail. But this way you can see me. So we're just going to punch in on the back. There's a little tab, and then work this connector off. Like that. Moving to the side of the tank on the bottom now, we're going to disconnect the water and fuel electrical line. And then moving to the front of the tank, we're going to go ahead and disconnect both of our fuel lines. Now this white clip just gets pressed outwards. So we'll pinch right here. There we go. So just down and out. This goes all the way backwards. And then make sure you don't stand underneath it. Push this up. And then on this yellow line, we'll let that drip for a second. In the yellow line, the outside is going to be a locking clip, so you can see that it's now disengaged. Then we can press in, and sometimes you gotta have to wiggle and release that one too. We're working on a 24 high output truck. The 23 and 24, 23 and up high outputs are going to have a additional fuel line heading out the side of the tank, about towards the front of the tank, going over to the DEF system for the DPF. And so we need to remove this fuel line on the trucks that have it. If you don't have a high output, you do not need to do this step. But if you do, remove this green tab, the locking tab there, and then push down on the collar behind there, and then you can wiggle that off, and that's free. So this truck came equipped with the skid plate. If your truck doesn't have a skid plate, you can ignore all these steps, but if it does, super simple to drop the skid plate. We're going to be using a 13mm around this side, and then a bigger socket on these two, which we'll come back to, but there'll be one bracket here on the passenger side. We'll just pull this bolt out. Set that bolt aside. Now we're going to move to the back. And it's going to be a similar process. Now we're on the back driver's side. Then we can move to the two larger 19mm bolts. Got all the skid plate bolts out, so we can slowly start dropping this now. This back bracket likes to catch on the drive shaft. So as we come down, we'll make sure we go slow and slide this bracket around the drive line. Now we can remove this additional half strap. We won't be reusing this. And then we can get our jack in place and start lowering the whole tank down. There are a few strap locations on these trucks where we really don't want to break cage nuts. This rear strap is one of them. It's really hard to access it. The frame's completely boxed here. So I don't recommend using an impact in this location. So we're going to get on this with a 13mm and a ratchet. just so we can feel it, make sure we don't break that cage nut. We're next going to do another 13 millimeter on the driver's side. This rear strap. We're going to move one more strap forwards now. Same thing, 13 millimeter again, by hand, just to be extra careful. On these driver side ones, if you do break a cage nut, you can squeeze an open end wrench in the box section of the frame in that cross member right here. And then some of these other ones, there's just small access holes which make it harder. And finally, we're going to remove the front strap, 2 more 13 millimeters. We went ahead and pulled our filler neck and vent hose actually off the metal pipes. So to do this, you can either reach up right here and do it, or go over the other side of the tank and get a little more leverage and just yank on that filler neck and the vent line. Pop them off completely. We've got our electrical unhooked at the sending unit, our electrical unhooked here at the fuel water separator, our fuel lines off, all of our straps are removed, and we're ready to start dropping the tank. So we're going to go ahead and get the S&B tank out of the box here. One important thing to note, do not lift by the hoses here. This will break the rollover fittings. So the tank comes with straps, like nylon webbing around it to help you get it out of the box. We'll get all of our straps out, set these aside. Then we'll lift it by the nylon, pull it out of the box. So we're going to remove this cover here. It's going to be 10 millimeters. That's going to let us get to the locking ring. It's easier to do this when the tank's installed in the truck, but this tank doesn't have much fuel in it, so we can flip it on its side here and do it real quick. There's a bolt up and underneath this, and we'll show you with the camera. So we're going to need to pull that out real quick. On some trucks, this will be an 8 millimeter. On some trucks, it's a Torx 27, I believe. Either way, just needs to be removed so that we can get that water separator off the tank. We start just popping these fuel lines out of the holders on the tank here, and just pull up. And then the front ones as well. We're going to move to the sending unit now. We have a sending unit removal tool. You can find these on Amazon or at like O'Reilly's AutoZone. If you don't, you can just use a dead blow and a flathead screwdriver or a big pry bar and grab one of these tabs. All we're going to do is spin this thing. With that removed, we'll get our O-ring in our new S&B tank and get everything ready to transfer the fuel system over. It's extremely important that you use the O-ring that S&B provides with your tank. So we'll open this up and do a quick inspection as well. Make sure there's no debris in the tank during shipping or anything. And I'll check it out with a flashlight here. And then we'll drop our O-ring in and get ready to move our sending unit over. So for this step, you may want to have a friend help you out, but you can do it by yourself as well. We're going to loosen the separator, slide it up, and then work the sending unit out, all the fuel lines at the same time. One caught up here. And then be careful not to bend the float. Go just straight over here. And this will slide into the bracket on the S&B tank. And then we're going to make sure that our tab and the sending unit lines up with the arrow that's molded into the S&B tank. It does. And then we can pre-start our locking ring. And start positioning our fuel lines. So now we're going to confirm that I can get to the electrical once it's in the truck. So the two holes should be one position right of the arrow here. And the best way to check it is just drop the guard on, and the small opening should be in front of the electrical, and the big opening for the fuel lines. So with that confirmed, we can now throw our locking ring tool on here and snap this. We're going to go ahead and reinstall our electrical shield here, or the shield for the top of the sending unit. 3 10mm. And that's good to go. Go ahead and seat that water separator all the way down on the bracket, and then we can start clicking in the fuel lines. This is the additional def line for that DPF. We're going to spin it up slightly and then click these two lines in front. Everything else will fit. This will sit down underneath that cross member right there. And we'll get the filler neck and vent switched over and get ready to install the tank. So we're going to go ahead and remove both hose clamps on the forward tank here. And these hoses are marked, or the filler neck is at least, with the T on it. And that T points straight upwards. We're going to copy that orientation on the S&B tank. So we're going to loosen the hose clamp up on the forward tank, remove the filler neck, and it's got a marking with like a T that shows you what up is. And then in your hardware pack with your S&B tank, you're going to have a bag that has a check valve in it. We're going to go ahead and remove this check valve from the bag. Make sure the flow arrow is pointing towards the tank. Push it in. And then I use the S&B tank to push it into the hose. We'll face that T upwards and get our hose clamp tightened down. Next, we're going to move the vent over. Same exact process. Hose clamp loose. And we just line this one up with filler neck and get that tightened down. We're going to go ahead and zip tie the rollover vent to the fill level vent. And we want to make sure it's tight enough so it clears the cross member here. And you'll be able to verify that when installing. Perfect. And now this tank is ready to go into the truck. We'll get some more stuff prepped here. I'll show you the U-bolt and how the front strap works. So I've threaded the U-bolt up and over this cross member. Then we have our kind of U-bolt retention tab here, and it's marked with front with an arrow. So we're going to make sure that's facing the front of the truck. And snake this under the U-bolt, and this divot is going to catch the U-bolt. And that's going to keep it in place left to right. And then we're going to look through the holes and line up the nuts and use the two partially threaded matching length bolts. Get these started. One, here will be two. I'm going to use a 13 and snug these down now. we are ready to install the tank. So as you're going up with the tank, you want to check a few things. One, feed this line over the cross member that's right here so that we can get it all the way to the filler neck. Two, the U-bolt location. There's some indents in the tank you can see specifically for the U-bolt. Three, if we can step to the back, it would be the filler neck and the vent. You need to go up and over this cross member right here so that they can line up, and you can actually see they're already touching there. Four, you don't want to pinch the electrical for your fuel water separator here. And then a couple other things, just if you have a high output truck, I can already see that my fuel line's perfectly in line right here. And then we'll grab the electrical connector for the sending unit too. But we've got the tank pushed up into place, aligned correctly. We'll start getting it hooked up. So we'll do the fuel lines up front first here, and they're gonna go on exactly how they came off, but I'll show you once we're back on. And I like to give these a nice pull test. So that didn't go. Probably wasn't far enough out. There we go. That felt good. And just pull on them a little bit, make sure they're both clicked in. Next, we're going to do all of our electrical connectors. And we do all this before the straps just to make sure that if we have to maneuver the tank at all, we can move it easily. So that's fuel water separator clicked on right there. We'll come back and do that screw in a little bit for it. And then I'm going to go back up and over. So I've got the electrical connector in my hand here. I'm just going to reinstall that. I hear the audible click. And then we're going to move over and do the filler neck and vents, or the level vent. And these can be a little awkward sometimes, so just be patient. This truck looks like it's going to be pretty easy for me, but we've fought them from time to time. All the electrical and plumbing is done on the tank now, so we can go ahead and install the front support strap. So it's going to take the 2 Nylock nuts and large black washers here. And this is just going to slide right over this U-bolt. There's a channel right here. And we'll go big washer and nut on both sides. And we're going to tighten this loosely. I'm kind of just going to leave them hand tight for now and let the rest of the straps position the tank, and then we'll come back to this last. We're going to start with our middle strap. It's going to be TI 1018, and I had my bolts set here from the OEM strap. We're going to reuse the OEM bolts. We're going to go ahead and reconnect our DPF and fuel line here, just because this is a high output truck. So I heard it click there, and I can go ahead and slide in my locking tab and do a little pull test on that, make sure it's good to go. And the tank's fully plumbed now. Move to the rear strap now. Again, reusing our factory hardware, longer bolt on the driveline side. And this one you kind of have to snake under. Just get these started by hand. Finally, we're going to go with the middle strap here, and it's going to be TI 1019. And this same thing, we're going to put the longer bolt on the driveline side. Start that by hand. Get our shorter bolt. And frame rail side. So now we're going to reinstall our screw for our fuel water separator here. And this is that 8 mil, but some trucks it's going to be Torx. It just installs right from the bottom. You can see it right there. So we got that snug down. The final step, we're going to use a 19 millimeter and start tightening down our U-bolts. We're just going to switch back and forth and snug these up easily or evenly. We're just going to get these snug so that the U-bolt's not moving anymore, and that there's some compression on the tank, but there's no need to go crazy here. Now we can run this all the way up to our filler neck, and we'll add one more zip tie right here. And if you don't have a skid plate, you will be done at this step. We'll continue on for those of you that do have skid plates, show you how to get that reinstalled. So we're going to start using the jack to get the skid plate in position here. Now I like to go behind the tank a little bit, get it up and over the drive line, and then come forwards. So we're going to start with the trickiest position. This is going to be the front drive line side. This extender is going to sit like this, so the wider flange up against the cage nut up there, and the narrower flange on the bottom. We're going to face this wall towards the tank and snake this thing in behind here, and then work the bolt up using this fully threaded longer bolt through both. And then we're going to have to go up. In the rear, we're not going to use any spacers, and we will reuse the factory hardware. And same thing on the rearmost frame rail side. On the forward two-most bolts, we're going to use one of the rectangle spacers, the longer bolts. Get these started by hand, and then we'll get the spacer aligned correctly and finish these off with the 19 millimeter. And then move back and do it one more time. The identical procedure. So we just got the install wrapped up here. If you have any questions at all during the install, feel free to call us, text us anytime, 909-947-0015. Thank you for your time.